Whether you're a content marketer, a coach, a small business, a journalist, or just have a message to share, podcasting will help you tell your story, become a thought leader in your industry, and build an audience like no other content marketing channel can. Now, you might have seen quite a few reports in the press and online recently that podcasting is making a huge resurgence as a content marketing channel. Now, have you ever wondered why that is? Well, podcasting has been around for over 10 years now. However, it's gained momentum and hit the mainstream in the last couple of years, mainly due to the high profile of shows like Serial and WTF. Now, what's interesting though is whilst the mainstream podcasts are enjoying record listeners and attracting some big sponsors, so too are the smaller podcasts, from personal podcasts to small business podcasts and company podcasts from bigger businesses. Podcast listening is at an all-time high, and what's even more interesting is that the people who are listening are hugely valuable to your business. Now, around 33% of the population now listen to podcasts on a regular basis, and in a recent survey by leading podcast advertising agency Midroll, they asked 168,000 podcast listeners who they are, what they do, and how they spend their money. And I think you'll be surprised by their results. Podcast listeners are highly educated. About half of the audience for podcasts have a bachelor's degree or higher, and they read a lot. On average, they're spending about $200 to $300 on books a year. That's 10 times the average of the rest of the population. Now, podcast listeners are captive audiences too. They listen to a podcast in the car, on public transport, or when they're walking, running, or biking. So podcast listeners are very highly engaged. Podcast listeners are loyal too, with a staggering 88% of people listening to most or all episodes of a podcast. And that makes podcasts one of the most stickiest forms of content marketing available. Now, here's the interesting part. 61% of people told Midroll they actually purchased something they heard about on a podcast ad. So not only do listeners hear podcasts, but they also respond astoundingly well to calls to actions in the show. And even more astounding is that Midroll's survey reveals 22% of podcast listeners have an income of $100,000 or more. Now, that's a pretty desirable audience that has a fair chunk of disposable income on hand. Now, wouldn't you like to attract more of these types of people to your business? Well, using podcasting as a content marketing channel can help you do just that. I'm Simon Dunant, host of the Podcast Power Marketing Podcast. And I've been publishing audio on demand for over 14 years. I actually started publishing audio online back in 2001, before podcasting even existed as a term. And I've been in the broadcasting business for much longer than that too. When iTunes added podcasts to their platform in 2005, things really took off in a big way, with millions of listeners starting to tune in. And podcasting grew steadily year on year. And in 2015, there were more than 2.5 billion downloads of podcasts on iTunes. So if you like the sound of podcasting, but haven't yet started your own, this video series is here to help you get started and take advantage of the opportunity podcasting offers you. So in this first video, I'm going to be showing you the variety of formats that you can use to start a podcast for your business. If you've listened to some of the more notable podcasters out there, some of them have hundreds of episodes. Some are published weekly. Some people are even publishing a daily show. Some of the podcasts are 30 minutes long. Others are just 10 to 15 minutes. Now, that's the beauty of podcasting right now. There are so many opportunities for you to fit a podcast into your content marketing schedule, and it doesn't need to take a lot of time or money to start podcasting. There's been a big adoption of series podcasts recently, most likely due to the popularity of the aptly named Serial podcast. And creating a podcast series is a great way for a business to get started. In essence, series podcasting is all about creating individual bodies of work. So, for example, you might focus on one area of your subject that matters to your customers. You might produce 10 episodes in your first series, and you might be done with that area and then consider moving on to something else for the next 10 episodes. The beauty of series podcasting is that you have a short-term stop-off point to jump off and take a look at how your body of content has performed, what worked, what you might have done better. And from there, you can really evaluate how to move forward with the next season in your series. And maybe you'll only create a series of podcasts each quarter for your audience, or maybe it'll be a one-off project with 10, 16 episodes. With series podcasting, it really is up to you. However you do it, the podcast episodes can also be extended throughout the year, and you can even repurpose them by having them transcribed. You could also use relevant snippets from your episodes to illustrate and complement other content marketing channels too. Perhaps you could even gather together the guests from each series and create a live event or a conference around your show. Podcasting is such a great medium that can lead you to so many amazing opportunities. Now, one of my favorite examples of series podcasting is Seth Godin's Startup School podcast. Now, Seth basically recorded one of his live Startup School events back in 2012. He took that recording, split it up into 15 episodes, posted them on iTunes. And the conversations between Seth and the budding entrepreneurs that took place over those 15 episodes is still fascinating and timeless today. And I still listen to the whole series on a regular basis, even though that body of work hasn't actually been touched since the last episode was published in early 2013. Now, back in episode 10 of our own podcast, the Podcast Power Marketing Podcast, we talked to Harry Hawke from inbound.org, one of the biggest marketing communities online, about how he was setting up the Inbound Podcast Network for inbound.org and why he was so enthusiastic about series podcasting. And here's what he told us.
One of the things that we're doing is I think a lot of podcasters start out saying, essentially, I'm going to do this forever. And the other constraint that we had that I put on it to get the project approved is I'm going to do a 16-week season, just like what you'd find on television. We're all used to television shows that come and go, that change over time, that get reworked, and maybe the same for some audio programs as well. My feeling was, and what I pitched to the rest of the team was, we're going to do this for 16 weeks. What we get out of it, we'll be able to step back, we'll be able to evaluate it, we'll be able to really look at the costs, the time, the effort, the benefits, and we'll be able to get feedback from the community. And then what happens after that really depends on the results, because we're results-oriented marketers. If it lives for just one season, that's what happens. If some shows go away, if some new shows come, if we realize that we've went in a different direction, it's not like we're marching all over the earth. We're just doing a couple weeks of work.
So like Harry says, podcasting doesn't have to be a big commitment. You can get amazing value out of podcasting however you approach it. The great thing about podcasts is that they're easy to create, they're immediate, and they're also fun to make. If you're creating a show where you interview guests, you've got an open door to invite any number of interesting people and peers to come and talk on your show. Podcasting is a great vehicle for making connections to people in your industry and sharing those fascinating conversations with your listeners that they might not always get to hear otherwise. I know I've championed the series podcasting format here. However, don't discount formats like having two hosts bouncing ideas off each other, or zoo formats where you can have a whole bunch of people in a room, either physically or virtually, contributing to the conversation, and then you can just record the results. Really, there are lots of possibilities to mix podcasting up. And that's what makes it exciting, and that's what makes it really easy to fit podcasting into the marketing mix for your brand. All right, so I've given you a lot to think about in this first video. So maybe you're already sparking off the ideas in your head on how you could create a format for a podcast for your own business. But many people at this point might start to feel a bit apprehensive about the technology that's involved in starting a podcast. And that's okay. I'm here to let you know that podcasting technology has got really easy recently. Not least due to the power of mobile devices like the iPhone or Android devices that you carry around in your pocket every day. So in the next video that's coming to your inbox in just a few days' time, I'm going to cover some of the technical aspects of podcasting and show you some of the easiest to use and most cost-effective equipment that will have you podcasting in no time. And in the next video, I've got something really special for you. I'm going to be showing you how you can start podcasting with just the mobile phone you already have right in your pocket. So go ahead, leave me a comment below. Let me know what ideas you've got for starting your own podcast, and also let me know what challenges you have that might be holding you back from starting your own podcast too. I'd love to be able to answer any questions you have in upcoming videos. So go ahead and leave a comment right below this video. I do read and respond to every single one of them. And remember, look out for the next video in this series dropping into your inbox in the next few days. But for now, this is Simon Dunn saying see you next time.